Alright you guys, as we said yesterday, the summer sale is going on the PlayStation Store right now, and it includes 70 PSVR 2 games. Yesterday we covered the first 35, so if you missed that, go back and watch part 1 of this video. For everyone else, let's forge ahead and tackle the rest of the games. Just keep in mind that the sale only lasts until July 31st, so if you're going to buy any of these games, you've only got about another week or so to decide. After literally years and years of countless updates from developer Hello Games, No Man's Sky is now one of the biggest games on the planet. The exploration, crafting, upgrades, base building, and discoveries are endless as you travel from planet to planet, which explains why people have hundreds, if not thousands of hours in this game. And, as you're going to hear a lot today, the PSVR 2 version is the best version of this game available, using eye tracking to make those high-res environments look beautiful. As a pretty generic wave shooter on PSVR 2, Operation Serpens doesn't really offer a lot new or interesting, which means if you were interested in it, $2 is the right price, but that's really only if you played everything else PSVR 2 has to offer. Pistol Whip is one of the better PSVR 2 rhythm games, but unlike most rhythm games, all the DLC for Pistol Whip thus far has been completely free. Since launch, Cloudhead has added a ton of new songs, new mods, and even campaigns with story elements and bosses. And with PSVR 2's OLED panel making everything pop and the adaptive triggers letting you know how many bullets you've got left, this is the best version of the game out there. Is it an amazing discount? No, but considering there's so much more content here than there was at launch, and you're likely to keep getting all the updates for free, it's a price worth paying. I really hate saying this, but Pixel Ripped 1978 is my least favorite game in the Pixel Ripped series. Fortunately though, even the worst Pixel Ripped game is actually still pretty good, especially for those of us with fond memories of early Atari games. So yeah, for $15 it's worth picking up, especially if you're a retro gamer, or if you just want something a little different. I already did a Brian Bite on Rainbow Reactor Fusion and gave it 2 out of 3 paws, and hopefully during that review I conveyed how addictive and how difficult this Match 3 game can get. It's fun though, and there are items you can buy with in-game currency that make life easier and slowly open up more parts of the Rainbow Reactor. $8 is a pretty good deal for this one. Do you guys remember what I said in the last video about Math World? Yeah, well, it's boring, but at least it wasn't half broken like Reading World VR is. It's got a lot of issues, like words that aren't even words.
Juice Kangaroo Lighthouse.
Reading World is a janky mess that A, needs to be fixed, and B, isn't even worth buying for the $10 sale price. Whereas Red Matter 1 was a more straightforward, narrative-driven puzzle game, Red Matter 2 ups the ante by including a jetpack for platforming, basic combat to keep things interesting, and even some fun stealth mechanics. I'm still undecided whether I like the puzzles in Red Matter 2 better than the original, but man, does this game look good. It runs at an insanely high resolution on PSVR 2, really showing what the headset is capable of. Plus, it eliminates the irritating, long load time seen on other headsets. Resident Evil 4 Remake is generally considered one of the best games on PSVR 2, despite complaints that it switches in third person while climbing ladders, doing roundhouse kicks, or even just pushing things out of the way. These are complaints that will eventually fall by the wayside. The AAA environments, great variety of weapons, all of which are upgradable, and the full-fledged campaign are all reasons why you should be buying Resident Evil 4, especially with the $10 discount. Okay, so I know I was just raving about Resident Evil 4, but for my tastes, Village is the better game. The bosses are way more impressive, overall it's way scarier, and because it's normally a first-person game anyway, the VRAF mechanics are done so much better. The only downside is that there's no trophy support, but even if that is an issue for you, like it is for me, there's no beating the $16 price tag. This is one of the best games on the platform. If you're like me and you've been playing Rez over and over since the PlayStation 2 days, you might be asking yourself, how many times do I need to buy this game? And the answer is, just one more time. Rez Infinite on PSVR 1 was great, but the enhanced resolution of PSVR 2 along with controller and headset haptics makes this the ultimate version of an already amazing rail shooter. The Room VR Dark Matter proves that full locomotion isn't always needed to make an immersive VR game, although I'd love to see a version that allows it. A Dark Matter puts you into 5 different environments with node-to-node teleportation, with each location making up a massive escape room. There's a good story here too. It's just a shame that there's practically no replay value. A third-person puzzle game with some first-person interactions, Seeker My Shadow just feels unpolished. Even with these somewhat simplistic graphics, the frame rate tends to stutter. The $30 price tag at launch felt absolutely insane, but for just $3, I'd actually say go for it. It's cheaper than the coffee I had this morning. Although, honestly, if I had to choose one, I would have chosen the coffee. After debuting with Swords of Gargantua and following it up with Altair Breaker, developer Thirdverse doesn't stray too far from the tried and true formula with their third outing, Soul Covenant. It's yet another co-op hack-and-slash arena fighter, this time with a post-apocalyptic anime aesthetic. Unfortunately though, someone must have told them that their last games were lacking story, because all the action is broken up with these long, drawn-out narrative segments that don't mesh with the rest of the game at all. These games are still fun though, especially with friends, so if this game ever gets down to about, I don't know, $20, I'd say give it a shot. But for $40? It's an easy pass. Even if you're like me and you're not the biggest Star Wars fan, there's still a lot to like about Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. It's a fun, single-player FPS that gives you plenty of stuff to shoot at during your adventure. The haptics and adaptive triggers during shootouts are some of the best PSVR 2 has ever seen, but are also featured prominently during some minor puzzle sections, which are a pretty good break from the action. And with a campaign that lasts upwards of 10 hours, there's a lot to like here. Stilt takes first-person platforming and adds an interesting twist. You've got bouncy stilts for hands that you can walk with or slam into the ground to bounce. It's surprisingly precise, and the single-player campaign can get really challenging. The 8-player online PvP modes are awesome too, with plenty of inventive, different game modes to keep you engaged. Listen, Stilt wasn't a bad deal at $20. In fact, there were so many levels and secrets to discover, $20 actually felt like a great deal. So for just $2, Stilt is a must-buy. For something that seems like shovelware, Super Death Game Show actually roped me in right from the beginning. I loved its lighthearted, Danganronpa approach to death, and the fact that it wants you to get creative and cheat at all the minigames it throws at you. But within an hour, I'd seen everything there is to see. And worse, there's no multiplayer. It makes no sense considering it's supposed to be a game show. It's too bad. This one could have been fun. Synth Riders is a great rhythm game, but considering this is the most expensive PSVR 2 option in the entire sale, we need to break down what's included here. Not only do you get Synth Riders the game, which already includes 73 songs, you also get 13 DLC music packs, the 80s Mixtape, Electro Swing Essentials Volume 1 and 2, Gorillaz, Groovin' Essential, League of Legends, Lindsey Sterling, Muse, Caravan Palace, Adrenaline, Synthwave Essentials, and the Cyberpunk Essentials music pack. Listen, $82 is a lot of money to drop all at once, and personally, only a couple of these music packs appeal to me at all. So take a good look at what you're getting. You may decide just to opt out, to just buy the game and the couple of music packs that you're interested in, and end up saving yourself 30 or 40 bucks. As the second best way to play Tetris ever created, the first being Tetris 99 obviously, Tetris Effect Connected is an absolute feast for the ears and eyes, featuring great music and backgrounds to accompany the mesmerizing particle effects, which get more and more elaborate the better you play. Even better, the Connected update adds a few multiplayer modes the original release was sorely lacking. Now, it's a great game deserving of your money, but it's only $10 off. But it's only $10 off in the sale, meaning there are bigger discounts you might want to consider first. Okay, we're reaching pretty far back, considering Thumper was a PSVR 1 launch game back in 2016. It's yet another rhythm game, but it's one of the most unique rhythm games ever created. I mean, you play as a chrome beetle, hurtling through the depths of hell. There's even bosses that loom way above your head in VR. It all looks stunning. And the PSVR 2 version, yet again, is the best version of the game out there, with intense haptics and adaptive trigger effects at every turn. You can get it now. Thank me later. You'd think that with Stilt out there for just $2, you wouldn't need Toss in your life. And even though it features much more linear obstacle courses, there's a real charm to this one. I enjoyed climbing around and throwing myself from place to place, trying to beat my friends on the leaderboards. But here's the rub, $12 is a great deal, but it seems like developer Agera Games has all but abandoned the PSVR 2 version and cancelled all plans for multiplayer updates that other headsets are currently enjoying. Maybe it's just me, but trailers for tower defense games always suck at selling their games, and Towers and Powers is no exception. Fortunately though, all you have to do is play for a couple stages, and once you start understanding the mechanics, Towers and Powers will start getting its hooks in you. The gameplay is pretty traditional for the most part, but with a few first-person powers thrown in for good measure. It's fun, looks clean in the headset. It's only $2! Just buy it! As a combination God Sim city builder, Townsmen VR really impressed us at launch. In fact, AJ and I spent almost a full episode of Gamescast Live talking about it. You've got to build up each island by assigning tasks to each villager, from farming and mining to defending against attacking pirates. It's a good game, but it should have been priced at $25 or $30 at launch, which makes the sale price of $10 almost impossible to resist. Toy Trains is a good example of a cozy VR game. You hover over a table and you build train tracks to connect different parts of the map. There's no time limits and you're welcome to make as many mistakes as it takes to bring it all together. Now listen, I wasn't super impressed with Toy Trains at launch, and despite the charming story, I didn't think the developers at Something Random went far enough with the formula. I do need to say though that since the last time I played it, the developers have added the Infinite Loop update, basically doubling the size of the game, so who knows? maybe they added something great. If you've played the update and you've got impressions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and help everyone out. After I reviewed Train Chase, the developer went back in and fixed literally everything I complained about. But making the train go faster, adding background music, and making all the weapons automatic, along with a slew of other improvements, didn't really make it a better game. The price was never the issue here. It's just a basic and repetitive rail shooter. Unplugged air guitar is the closest you're going to get to Guitar Hero in VR. That said, it's still not Guitar Hero. You can kind of tell that this one was made for other headsets that utilize hand tracking. There's a good selection of songs here though, so if you need another rhythm game in your life, this is the right price if you're interested. For $12, Ven VR Adventure isn't the worst way to spend an afternoon, and on the surface it seems pretty decent. But the more you play this third-person platformer, the more you'll realize that it's not great. The camera can be a real pain regardless of which option you choose, there's random glitches everywhere, and the boss fights, which should be the highlight of any platformer, are terrible. Honestly, just wait for Max Mustard. Listen, I'm a sucker for horror games, even mediocre ones. And despite the constant, massive patches that Very Bad Dreams seems to get every single week, mediocre is still where this game sits. That's not a bad thing though, as Very Bad Dreams is still fun to play and packs in plenty of original ideas you don't see in other horror games. There's even an exclusive chapter on PSVR 2. So if you love horror and you can handle the jank, this seems like a decent price. Alright, how bad does the game have to be for me to not recommend it, even for 50 cents? This bad. Let's move on. If somehow you've been watching the channel and never heard me talk about how great Walkabout mini golf is, or maybe you've heard me talk about it but you're still not convinced, this is the time to take the plunge and discover how much fun it is for yourself, provided that you're willing to try out the multiplayer. You can get the base game that includes 8 courses for just $10.49, and even better, it just got updated with all sorts of new game modes. Don't let the low poly environments fool you. Walkabout is one of VR's best social games. It was tough being a PSVR 1 gamer, playing Waltz of the Wizard and hearing about all of the awesome updates it was getting on other platforms. Thankfully though, the PSVR 2 version launched with all the updates in place, letting me roleplay as a wizard in a cool little sandbox, experimenting with different spells, solving puzzles, and trying everything I could to see what worked. But it's only $5 off, so while it's good, if you've waited this long to play it, you can wait longer. I'll never understand the appeal of What the Bat. In my Drums Rock and Before Your Eyes reviews, I was almost apologetic for not liking them as much as everyone else I talked to. But that's not the case here. What the Bat is bland, boring, and I could only play it in short 15-minute spurts out of fear that I'd die of boredom if I kept playing. Calligrapher is more of an educational tool than it is a game, and it relies a bit too heavily on filling in an outline with your brush, rather than forcing you to use proper brushstrokes. Is it chill as f***? Yeah. Is it worth your time? Well, that's up to you, but personally, I'd pass. I honestly don't think there's been many games in VR better than the Saints and Sinners series. Realizing I could play however I wanted, ignoring the campaign for hours at a time in order to scavenge materials to craft weapons, ammo, health items, and upgrades for my character was so refreshing. Plus, it embodies the term VRAF by avoiding menus and putting your notebook in your front pocket, the inventory in your backpack, and forcing you to reload your shotgun one shell at a time, making every second count and every zombie a threat. These games are just an incredible experience, with I think the only downside being that Chapter 2 feels like glorified DLC for Chapter 1. But don't let that get in the way. This is a great deal. When I played the Wizards Enhanced Edition all the way back in 2019 on PSVR 1, I really liked the gesture-based spellcasting and thought, if these guys ever make a sequel, I bet it'll be awesome. Well, they did, and it wasn't. It's strange though, Dark Time's Brotherhood is actually 2 completely different games. There's a single-player adventure and a multiplayer roguelite, and despite some solid first impressions, I don't think either one ends up being worth your time. Alright you guys, thank you so much for watching the summer sale video. This is actually the first time I've done one of these in almost 2 years, so let me know in the comments below if you find them helpful, and if so, maybe I'll do it again for the next sale.